Greeting, my friends. Patrick Wood here, editor-in-chief of Technocracy.news. You have come to the right place to hear all about technocracy and what's going on in the world of technocracy. Today's going to be a short video because there's just one thing to say today, and it has to do with the coronavirus. I'm going to share 3 stories with you to make the point that the world has been punked, plundered, and pillaged by this group of technocrats who spread a false story on the coronavirus starting from day one, and now more hard evidence is coming out as to what really happened. We're going to take a look at a couple of stories here to make this point. Yesterday, CNN, of all places, carried a story about the WHO, the World Health Organization. In my opinion, the reason that CNN carried the story is simply because it emanated from the WHO. They have been in the habit of running anything the WHO puts out. It's like, I don't think they really care what it is. If it's a story that comes out of WHO, it must be damaging to the world and a scaremongering item that has to be told. That's kind of the way the WHO has been doing it. But yesterday, a story came out, headline on CNN Health: coronavirus spread by asymptomatic people appears to be rare, according to a WHO official. Now, it doesn't matter who this story was written by the way. But what does matter is we look down into the story and we see the spread of COVID-19 by someone who was not showing symptoms appears to be rare. Maria Van Kerkhove, now remember that name, the World Health Organization's technical lead for the coronavirus response and head of the Emerging Diseases and Zoonoses Unit, said during a media briefing in Geneva on Monday. That was yesterday. She said, the data we have, it still seems to be rare that an asymptomatic person actually transmits onward to a secondary individual. That's her, Van Kerkhove. She said it. We have a number of reports from countries who are doing very detailed contact tracing. There's the old contact tracing theme winding into this. They're following asymptomatic cases, they're following contacts, and they're not finding secondary transmission onward. It is very rare, and much of that is not published in the literature, she said. We are constantly looking at this data, and we're trying to get more information from countries to truly answer this question. It still appears to be rare that an asymptomatic individual actually transmits the disease onward. Now, what this means is that from day one, the WHO has been wrong. All of the medical personnel, all of the epidemiologists have been wrong. They were never right. Did they know that they were wrong from day one? My guess is a lot of them understood it perfectly. In fact, the history of coronaviruses, which is really nothing more than a cold for most of us, that is the type of virus the common cold is, coronavirus. Everybody knows that if you have a cold and you're sneezing and coughing and hacking and whatever, that you're contagious. You stay away from those kind of people. You isolate them. You tell them to go home, get well, eat some chicken soup. But they told us that this virus is different. This virus could be spread any old which way, whether you have symptoms or not. That was the whole basis of the lockdown, my friends. That's exactly what they told us. That the reason you needed to be locked down all around the world is because asymptomatic people, you don't even know you have the disease, but you're able to transmit it to other people who are healthy. And even if you never get symptoms, those other people could get sick and die. So the World Health Organization let the cat out of the bag. CNN got punked in a sense and ran the story, and it's still up on their website, by the way, as you can see. Many other sources picked up this story as well. And it caused a furor around the world because the implications are, of course, trashing the global economic system was a fraud, was a scam. The whole world economic system shut down because of this nonsense. And now the WHO said none of it was true. Asymptomatic people cannot transmit the disease. Well, after this scientist got dressed down by her WHO superiors, today another story comes out. We don't actually have that answer yet. Who clarifies comments on asymptomatic spread of COVID-19? And there she is in the flesh, Maria Van Kerkhove, who's technical lead on the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, do you think she knows what she's talking about? Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. Who knows? She is part of the WHO organization after all. But in this case, she innocently probably thought, this is the story. We might as well just say it like it is and release it. I bet there were some heated conversations after that press release yesterday. And this poor lady was dressed down and told what she must say to get out of the predicament and to bail the WHO out as the biggest fraudster organization in the world. The article states, a top World Health Organization official, here she is again, officially clarified on Tuesday that scientists have not determined yet how frequently people with asymptomatic cases of COVID-19 pass the disease on to others, a day after suggesting that such spread was very rare. Now, they know it's very rare. They got their data, the raw data came from other countries, not from an official WHO study. The clarification comes after WHO's original comments incited strong pushback from outside public health experts who suggested the agency had erred, or at least miscommunicated, when it said people who didn't show symptoms were unlikely to spread the virus. Maria Van Kerkhove, the WHO's technical lead on the COVID-19 pandemic, made it very clear Tuesday that the actual rates of asymptomatic transmission aren't yet known. So this is called a flip-flop. They had the information one day and they didn't have it the next day. Well, what is it going to be? Is it true or is it not true? You see, she just got caught on the wrong side of the issue initially. I wouldn't be surprised if she got a pink slip sometime soon to say, if you can't speak straight and speak the party line, you're out of here. Go find someplace else to work. Well, she probably needs a little bit of advanced training in technocracy and how to be a good technocrat because she didn't follow the party line. Now, having said this, having revealed this whole story, that the lockdown around the world was all for nothing. And I do mean all for nothing. Every governor's executive order in America, every city council's panic and shutdown of city services and the city utilities and everything else, all of the panic in hospitals around the country to ramp up for massive numbers of patients, which never showed up in most cases. In fact, almost in every case, it never showed up. What happened to the hospitals in the meantime is they lost the most important part of their business, which was elective surgery. Those people virtually have disappeared. Doctors have been laid off and their pay cut. Nurses have been laid off or their pay cut or their hours cut. And our own health system is in shambles because of this nonsense. And it was all a lie from the get-go. It wasn't true. Yet they believed it was true. They told us it was true. The newspapers put it across all the headlines it was true. People believed them. You see, this is what technocrats have done. They have laid this out in such a way and used the propaganda tools at their disposal to convince the world that the only thing they could do is shut down the global economic system. Of course, they didn't call it that initially. They just said, you need to save lives. You need to flatten the curve. That's what you need to do. That's what this is all about, flattening the curve. Nobody really understood what that meant. Flattening the curve? A curve is just a line on a piece of paper. The statistics that underlie the curve can be anything you say. Now we know it was anything they said because it was not based on factual data whatsoever. They just made it up. They made a prop and they said, this is how we're going to conquer the virus. We're going to flatten the curve. Well, while all that's going on, the economic system of the world was put into shock. How much shock? And I want to reiterate again, the only people who have it in for capitalism and free enterprise are the technocrats that work at the United Nations that promote sustainable development, which is an alternative economic system to capitalism and free enterprise. They're the only ones that have sworn to destroy capitalism and free enterprise. Nobody else has. The Marxists haven't. The communists haven't. The Democrats haven't. Certainly the Republicans haven't. No, nobody's calling for the destruction of capitalism and free enterprise except for technocrats. And it's been that way since 1932, for Pete's sake. It's the same old, worn-out goal that in order to have technocracy, you must have capitalism and free enterprise out of the way. These are the guys who had, here's crime story, a motive, and they had the ability to carry it out because they did when they started the Great Panic of 2020. A brilliant plan on their part. But I want to show you just what this means and give you perspective. Here we have the World Bank. The World Bank is the global engine of globalization for the last 45, 50 years. This was the bank that was captured by the Trilateral Commission starting in 1976 with the election of Jimmy Carter. 6 out of 8 of the World Bank presidents thereafter were members of the Trilateral Commission. Coincidence? No, not hardly. This was one of the reasons that they wanted to get into the United States government and grab a hold of the economic engine of the world. And the World Bank was a major part of that. So the World Bank has been on the side of the United Nations, as is, of course, the World Economic Forum and other global institutions like that. But the World Bank is particularly near and dear to my heart. I wrote a little pamphlet on the banking system, the trilogy of banks in the world, and how they have achieved globalization. It's available on the website, by the way. It's displaying right there, the little yellow book on the right side. But here's what the World Bank says. That we're facing the worst economic collapse in 150 years. Now do a little counting. That will take you back through World War II. It'll take you back through the Great Depression. It will take you back through World War I. It will take you back through the depression that occurred before that. Basically, back 150 years is a Stone Age as far as we're concerned today. That's my point. The technocrats have not only shut down the system, they have virtually destroyed it. I'll temper this comment about the World Bank just a little bit by saying we would expect the World Bank to greatly exaggerate the damage that has been done. It probably is less than 150 years. Maybe it's only 75 years. Oh, I feel better already. But you see, the World Bank has an axe to grind too, because they want to get rid of capitalism and free enterprise as well. So they come out with a story like this, and they give some statistics and stuff to prove their point, and some of it makes some sense. It says the coronavirus pandemic inflicted a swift and massive shock that has caused the broadest collapse of the global economy since 1870, despite unprecedented government support, the World Bank said Monday. Now, I wonder if they're going to flip-flop on their story. I doubt it. The world economy is expected to contract by 5.2% this year, the worst recession in 80 years, but the sheer number of countries suffering economic losses means the scale of the downturn is worse than any recession in 150 years, the World Bank said in its latest Global Economic Prospects report. This is a deeply sobering outlook, they say, with the crisis likely to leave long-lasting scars and pose major global challenges, said World Bank Group Vice President for Equitable Growth and Finance and Institutions, Sila, and I can't pronounce the last name. The depth of the crisis will drive 70 to 100 million people into extreme poverty, worse than the prior estimate of 60 million, she told reporters. And one of the reasons I picked the picture, by the way, this is the World Bank. They have been bought into sustainable development and the sustainable development goals that were produced with the 2030 agenda a few years ago. The first goal of the SDGs, that's for sustainable development, is to end poverty in all its forms. Now, how's that for an altruistic statement? We're going to eliminate poverty for everyone everywhere. That was the goal of the United Nations. A Pollyannish view, in my opinion, because nobody has ever eradicated poverty and never will. But this is the hollow promise they put out as number one issue with the SDGs, eliminate poverty. And so the World Bank dutifully put SDG number one right up on the side of their building some time ago. End poverty. Are you beginning to see the irony here? Let's just scroll down and look at this again. The depth of the crisis will drive 70 to 100 million people into extreme poverty. Those are people that live on less than $2 a day. These are the very people that populate great parts of Africa and even South America for that matter, but mostly Africa. They want to lift these people out of poverty. So whatever work they've done in the last 20, 30, or 40 years to eliminate poverty in any of these countries, they have just not only given up all the gains, but they have sent a tidal wave of people into extreme poverty. How does that balance out against the lives that were saved by flattening the curve? It doesn't fly, does it? It doesn't make any sense unless you're a technocrat. If you're a technocrat, you have achieved the goal that you set out to do. We have been punked, plundered, and pillaged by this relatively small group of technocrats who think they know how to run the world better than anybody else. According to science, of course, once they got their white lab coats on, they can hide behind the facade of science, make science say whatever they want it to say, and then say, you, John Q. Citizen, must do X, whatever that is. Science says. If science says you need a vaccination, a mandatory vaccination that they've set up with the government, why, you will take a vaccination because science says you must. We don't want another curve that we have to flatten after all. So we're going to make sure that never happens by sticking a needle in your arm and giving you a vaccination. Of course, a vaccination is just one example. Other things are happening around the world that would make you probably equally as alarmed. The United Nations, for instance, in Europe, is promoting the consumption of insects for protein. In their mind, after all, the beef industry and the meat industry and the protein industry are on the way out because they're part of the brown economy. Oh, but the new sustainable economy is going to be good for you. It's going to give you the opportunity to eat sustainable insects like grasshoppers and crickets and things like that. They can grow these things, by the way, in very small factories, and they dry them and grind them up into dust, and they make protein powder where you can have drinks and mix it in with your food. And oh, they say it's wonderful. Insect protein. No, thank you. Most Americans would revolt at such a thought that we would be eating bugs one day and give up the diets that we've had all these years. I don't think so. Well, that's all I have to say about this whole scenario right now. It's absolutely incredible. And I just want to say to you, if you have been part of the Technocracy.news family for some time, that I encourage you to spread these articles around when you can. Share them off of the website. There's share buttons on every screen. It's really easy just to click one of these. You see Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and even MeWe's on here too. It's pretty popular today, and Reddit and so on. You can also send by email directly out of the application. You can also print it if you click the little print icon, or if you like a PDF file, you can click that. It will generate a PDF file for you to download. One of the reasons I encourage people to print and download these files is because what's going to happen if we get disappeared from the internet like so many other companies and individuals have? If Google pulls a plug on somebody, traffic just goes down the tubes. So just in case there's ever a time when the internet gets disrupted for some reason, purposely or otherwise, you'll be thankful that you had some of these stories to prove what was said here in days like today. This is the real deal. I wish there was a do-over. I wish it was just a game. I wish it was just a fantasy. But it's not, it's reality. The reality we're facing is that the steamroller of technocracy is coming at us with everything it's got. Only people of the world can reject technocracy. And they have to, they must, and they must do it soon, because it's coming on the whole world, and the rest of the world doesn't seem to be very prepared to stop it. Well, Americans can do a lot, and there is a lot going on in America that makes a difference, and we should pay attention to the things that are happening. IBM, by the way, oddly enough, today just announced that they're giving up their facial recognition business as a service. Go figure that one. IBM has been involved in a lot of nefarious things over the years, and I wouldn't trust anything they said. Well, at least I'd take it with a grain of salt. But IBM is dropping its facial recognition service, and it's saying that it is too unreliable and too potentially biased, and in particular biased against black people. You know, go figure. That's a good thing. I mean, regardless of why they're doing it, it is a good thing that IBM is making a statement that facial recognition should be removed from police departments across America. They have given a shot across the bow, if you will, to the Amazons of the world with Ring and the Googles of the world with Nest cameras, etc., and all of the other facial recognition technologies that are being sold. IBM's the king of the hill when it comes to that kind of stuff. And IBM is saying, we don't need any of that stuff. You need to get rid of it. Well, I happen to agree with that. I think that would be great. Well, I'm Patrick Wood, again, for Technocracy News and Trends. If you're watching on YouTube, please like the channel. And please do give it a thumbs up. It makes a difference to other people coming to see that you have appreciated or you like what's being said here. And if you're on Podbean by some chance, please do subscribe there. There's a great app for Podbean that lets you listen to these podcasts on your smartphone or tablet. And by all means, go to the mailing list on Technocracy.news, big orange banner at the top of the screen. You can't miss it. And sign up for daily updates on the stories that I post. And I do not overload you. I only post 3 carefully chosen stories per day. I also don't put any pop-ups on the website. Drives me insane to go to anybody else's website and you're just assaulted by pop-ups and videos playing, and you get rid of one and another one pops up and it covers up the text. You can't read it. I don't like that, and we don't do that on Technocracy News and Trends purposely. I want you to consume the information there, and if you appreciate that information, by the way, there is a donate button and a link. If you want to give to Technocracy.news, you can do it right on the website. You can also do it on our Patreon account, which is patreon.com/ and then just search for the word Technocracy, and you'll find Technocracy News and Trends very quickly. So until next week, I hope you digest this information. Take off your face mask. Chill out. The world is not going to fall apart. The world is not going to all die from the coronavirus. There will be other things that want to kill us, but that one's gone now. That whole narrative is down the road, as they say. See you next week.